Hi, and welcome to day 5 where we're looking at the cue bidding auction continued. So today we're going to look at some hand visualization, some different types of cue bids, and also the interaction between 4 no trumps and cue bidding, and also finally something called last train. So first things first, one important thing we have to do when we use cue bidding is we really need to use our hand visualization skills. So here, for instance, where it's gone 1 heart past 3 hearts, we now start to use our skills in terms of whether bids have been denied. For instance, when a 4 club bid comes back and we now know that our opener's denying a cue bid in spades. First of all, it means that if we don't have a cue bid in spades, we must sign off. We absolutely need to sign off because we know the opponents are taking 2 tricks in spades already. So we have to have that spade cue bid. The other thing you start to be able to do is you start to be able to place the points that partner has. And this is a pretty tricky thing to do, but it is something that you'll start to improve at when you start to think about the cue bidding auctions and sequences that you have a little bit more. For instance, with our 4 club bid, we'd know that partners either got a singleton, a void, the ace, or the king. Looking at your hand, you might be able to better place what card partner has. For instance, if you were looking at the ace and the king, you'd know that they had a singleton. And what you need to do is you need to start placing where their points would be and visualizing where their cards are. This is a skill that will improve over time. And the next thing is, just in terms of our cue bidding and what we try to do, we don't actually cue bid singletons or voids in partner's suit. Now what I mean by this is if we had an auction that say went 1 spade past 2 hearts and the opener now raised to 3 hearts, most importantly we have found a major suit fit, so hearts are absolutely trumps. We're not playing any other trump suit except for hearts. What it means is that if we bid 3 spades, it would actually be a cue bid agreeing hearts as trumps and promising first or second round control in the spade suit. But there's a little catch here. If it's a suit that partners already bid, we don't actually show a singleton or a void unless we have a singleton, ace, or a king. Now the reason for this is that partner's hand, with their 5 spades, they need spade cards that are going to bolster up their suit. So hopefully their suit's going to become worth tricks. If we've got a singleton, it just means we're going to have to rough those cards, so it's not going to be useful for partner. So if ever you've got a singleton or a void in your partner's suit, what you do is you simply skip over that cue bid and you make another cue bid instead. And it's just because of the principle that we're trying to help their long suit become worth tricks, and that's another hand visualization skill. Another thing that we might need to consider is when we can possibly cue bid a suit twice. So you might have, for instance, an auction where it goes 1 heart pass and you might use 2 no trumps as a cue bid. Now here, as a raise. Now here we might have our opener be able to bid 3 clubs as a cue bid, and let's say our responder came back with 3 spades. Now what happens here is we know that our responder's got a cue bid in spades. We also know they're denying a cue bid in diamonds because they've skipped past a 3 diamond bid. Now if it came back to our opener and they did have a diamond cue bid and wanted to continue a cue bidding auction, what they could do is they could cue bid again. Now if they cue bid a suit they've already cue bid, or what it means is basically that they've got the first and the second round control in the suit, so you need to have both of them, and that's an important one to remember. There's also an interesting situation about when a splinter bid's happened. So if you play splinters with your partner, what might happen is you might have a bid that's a splinter bid. We'll say 3 diamonds if you play that as a splinter. What always happens after there's been a splinter bid, if we start a cue bidding auction, if anyone cue bids the splinter suit, they must have first round control in it. So if the splinter players bid the 4 diamonds, that'd be that they've got actually a void rather than having just a singleton. On the other hand, let's say our responder kept the cue bidding auction going and then the opener cue bid. This will also be first round control because we know that we've got the second round control with a splinter. So if we're going to cue bid that suit, we need to have first round control in it. So the principle is if you cue bid a suit twice, you have to have first and second round control. And if you cue bid a suit where one of the players has shown a singleton or void, you must also have the ace of it, or if you showed the singleton or a void, you must have a void. Now, the last thing that we're looking at in terms of our cue bidding auctions is the interactions between 4 no trumps and cue bidding. Now, ideally in every slam auction that we're going to have, we'd be able to set our suit as trumps, have a cue bidding auction to check that we're not missing 2 tricks in any one suit, and then use our key card or our blackwood. Unfortunately, this isn't always the case. Sometimes what might happen is you might be a little bit too high that you can't actually have a full cue bidding auction. Say if 4 hearts was bid as a splinter. If this is the case, you just revert to using your 4 no trumps key card bid. Alternatively, you might get to the stage where you're trying to determine if you want to keep on cue bidding or you want to use key card. And this basically comes down to what you want to know from the auction. So for instance here, if we had bid 4 diamonds, we'd know the opener's denying a cue bid in clubs, but does have 1 in hearts. If it came around to our responder now, and they also had a cue bid in clubs, they need one of those, so we know we're not missing 2 tricks in clubs, and they also had a cue bid in hearts, they've got 2 options. They can either use 4 no trumps, or they could make a cue bid themselves. Now the 2 are meant to be complementary. It's not meant to be one or the other. They're meant to work hand in hand. And it just depends on what you have. If our responder knew they definitely wanted to go to slam because they had a wonderful hand, they could just bid 4 no trumps. If they didn't think they wanted to bid 4 no trumps, they wanted to basically let their partner choose, that's when they could bid the 4 heart cue bid. So they work together. You'd never really skip over 4 no trump to make a cue bid at the 5 level. But you can use both of them. Ideally you want to be able to use both of them, but sometimes you'll just run out of room and you'll just have to use 4 no trumps. Now the last thing, and it's a bit of an interesting one, is that there's another use that's kind of like a cue bid, but it's in one very special situation. And this is a special situation that arises when the only bid between the suit that we're going to play game in and also the bid that's been made, there's only 1 bid available. So this might be something where it's gone 1 heart and then there's been, say, a 4 club bid, which might be a splinter bid. Now at this stage, the only option that our opener has is to either bid 4 hearts or bid 4 diamonds if they essentially wanted to make a cue bid. So they might have a problem if they had a hand that was possibly interested in slam, but they just didn't know. They wanted to look for slam, but they just didn't know. Imagine if they didn't have a cue bid. We have a special treatment for this, which is what's called last train, where over any bid where there's only 1 option between stopping in game in your suit or looking for slam, in this case it's 4 diamonds, we use the bid as what's called a last train bid or an invite to slam. It basically says, partner, I may or I may not have a cue bid in the suit that I've bid, but I'm definitely interested in looking for slam. I can't commit to it because if you could commit, you could cue bid or you could bid 4 no trumps yourself, but it's your way of saying, I'm basically inviting you to slam. I think we might have enough for slam, but I'm not too sure. So this would be a hand where you know your partnerships maybe got somewhere between about 31 and 33 or 31 and 34 points, where you just don't know and you need partner to take a little bit of initiative in the auction. So this is what's called a last train bid. It is quite useful. So I hope you've enjoyed these lessons on cue bidding, and we've been able to solidify some of the principles for you. From what we really want you to take away from this, cue bidding and keycard and blackwood, they go hand in hand. What we're basically going to do is we're going to use our cue bidding if we can to check that we're not missing 2 tricks in any one suit. Then what we do is we use keycard to check that we're not missing 2 aces, because we might have been both cue bidding second round controls and we might actually find that we are missing still 2 aces or 2 keycards. We also need to know that if partners denied a control bid in a suit, you must have a cue bid in that suit to keep the auction going. If you don't have a cue bid, sign off in game as soon as possible. We've also introduced you to a couple of different tips and tricks, such as not Q-bidding singletons or voids in partner's other long suit. And also, if you're going to Q-bid the same suit twice, you need first and second round control. If you'd like to adopt the last train principle, it is a wonderful thing to do, but it's not necessary at all. And the only time that it applies, remember, is if between where we've set the trumps and the 4 of the trump suit, there's only one bid. That's the only time that it applies, and it's a way of basically inviting to slam. Partner, I think we might have slam, but I'm not sure. I can't just start bidding for no trumps. So thanks for watching, and we will see you next week. If you'd like to endeavour to take on the expert course, do feel free, and I hope you enjoy.